Right, we're rolling. Right, welcome to 20 Schemes Uncut, to our one viewer. Probably be two now, we know that you're here. We haven't done this for a while. I've got Gerald with me. We'll introduce Gerald in a bit. We've got some new people behind the cameras. We've got Pete and we've got Andrew. You can't see their faces, but trust me, they're here. They've joined us, so thanks for this, lads. Not done. This is the first pandemic uncut we've done. Now, tell me something. You're very nervous, aren't you? I can sense the nerves.
It's just, I knew, get it over and done with, come on.
Is it true that people who inject steroids are far less likely to contract COVID? Because that's what I've heard.
I don't know, you'll have to
So
ask
your
them.
chances are about zero, aren't they, right now?
You do more steroids than me.
So you're sitting there with your tight top on.
It's flipping large.
You borrowed that off your youngest son. So tell people who you are first.
Right, so I'm Gerald, church planter and soon to be pastor of Hope Church Bingham. Married to Morna, got 3 kids, Noah, James and Faith. And I've got plenty of nicknames, which I'm sure you'll share.
Is it true that you sleep on a bed made up entirely of Puritan paperbacks?
I prop it up with them, yeah.
You like a Puritan, don't you?
Mm.
Who's your favourite?
I think Thomas Brooks, he would probably be my favourite, or...
Yeah,
Thomas
I'm bored.
Watson.
I'm bored already. So tell me a little bit about how long you've been with Bingham, because Bingham was with Paul, wasn't it, for a while, and then obviously Paul stepped out for a bit for personal reasons, and then I feel like it's been more than a year, or has it been about
a year and a half? Yeah.
And you took over. You took over an already existing team of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I took over. I think at the time we had Emily, Brian, Lorne, Tommy. We had quite a big team. Melissa.
Yeah, a lot of the people. Some of those names you mentioned, though, were actually in training to go elsewhere. So so people know Tommy and Lorne, and now in Glasgow.
That's right.
Revitalising in Maryhill. Brian left as well.
Steve McConnell's gone into secular work, and Melissa's working for.
So what was the size of the team you took on when you first took it on?
It was about 7.
Because it is hard. Tell people how hard it was. It's hard to come on and... So you were supposed to be planning a church, and then this was in a sort of pre-plant phase. Obviously had a big... well, it was a suicide, wasn't there? Big tragedy in the middle of it all, and then you have the unenviable... So in all seriousness, just talk us through that, of how you come in and take on somebody else's team, really. How did that feel? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because you obviously have your previous expectations. You're going to be planting elsewhere, and then, Mona and I had to really prayerfully sort of consider it when you asked and just think, okay, we ready to go and serve at Bingham? Because wherever we go, we wanted to bring our coffins. We wanted to die there. That's where we wanted to go,
We ought to bring our coffins.
Yeah.
All right, well hard.
No, but the old missionary boys did it, didn't they?
All for the master.
It is, all for the master. But no, it was difficult. It was almost like church revitalisation when you're taking on someone else's team where there's maybe different leadership styles. So you're bringing in your own leadership style, you bring in your own sort of way you do things. And I think the team had to adjust to that at first.
And were there tensions?
I don't think there was any major.
Well, most of them left, so obviously.
Yeah, they all did actually, except for Emily. So Emily's the only existing.
And she begged me to put her somewhere else.
Yeah. It was. So I think it was difficult in that sense.
So you had to get a period of time to adjust to that before you could think about how's this going to work in us planting a church, right?
Yeah, wanted a good year of just stability. They've gone through a lot. They've gone through, that tragic loss for all of us, and new guy coming in. Just I think a year of just embedding my leadership style and the way.
And so, what is your leadership style? Is it like gangster?
No, definitely not.
What is it?
I don't know. I'd like to think that I'm sort of pastoral. That's my sort of leadership style. Get alongside people.
Nah.
But yeah. Can I just ask a question? Why has he got a water and I haven't? What is that about?
There you see his leadership style. That there. That's
Well, that's the orphan mentality. That is, mate. I'm looking at what you've got.
Because I just brought it in with me, bud. Because I've done about 50 of these, and I know I'm going to get 30. Would you like Andrew to get you some water?
Yeah, all right then.
Would you like a sandwich or something? A butty or something?
No.
You
I'm
sure?
good. Yeah. Cheers, Andrew, mate.
Peanut M&Ms. Oh, so we've sussed out what your leadership style is.
No, if I see an
Why
opportunity.
haven't I got any water?
If I see an opportunity, I'm getting it.
Eh? So, where are you on the? We have a league table, don't we? Of Planters Financial.
Yep.
Bringing finance in. You've been in the relegation zone for some time now, but how you doing?
It's always a relegation battle, but I always come out on top. You know, the other guys.
The other guys slip up, don't they?
Yeah, they do at the last minute.
So you have how many now in your team? So you had about 7. I felt there was a bit more people than that. When I meant team, I mean the group you inherited,
right.
not the team.
Yeah. So I guess then it was about 14. We got 20 adults now, 13 kids.
So you're launching this Sunday.
Yeah.
Or Sunday the
4th
of October, in case this is being watched at a later date. You've got 20 adults, about the same amount of children.
Yeah.
And just tell us about, obviously, you've come into it, all joking aside now, you've come into a high-pressure situation, took over from a guy who had a big tragedy. That's pressure on its own. It was his team. He'd been there 2 years, building that team. And it's getting established in the community. You come in with your wife, you take that on. You didn't even have a house in the community until just recently.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago, yeah.
Just trying to find a house there, take the team on. And then the pandemic just shuts everything down. So just talk us through, because, I mean, I have my finger on the pulse of planting all around the world, particularly through our A29 contacts, and there are very few churches being planted in the middle of the pandemic, which is why I wanted to do this more specifically. So just talk us through how you as a group dealt with things like outreach and how you got on with preparation for planting, or maybe you didn't. What were some of the ministries that you had to shut down? What did you do that surprised you? Stuff like that, just so people can know some ideas for what happened.
Yeah, I mean the biggest kicker was having to shut down really fruitful ministries like our community meal on the evening. We would get like 45 unchurched, unsaved people from the community coming in, get a meal, and they'd hear a gospel message. And so
when was that set on? Wednesdays.
Yeah, Wednesday nights. And then straight after that we'd have a Bible study where it'd be primarily for the pre-plant team, but then also for the non-believers as well. So to shut those down was a killer. But I think in all of this, it keeps you on your toes, doesn't it? I mean, you start thinking of pioneering new things, and you know, it's uncharted waters. None of us has gone through this before. So
did you pioneer anything new?
Yeah. So
what?
we did the meals, tracts, Bibles, gave all that sort of stuff out.
Well, you're saying that like people know. You gave out the meals. Explain what you mean by that.
So like people in the community, that would be our new way of building up contacts, finding out, you know, what little old dear needed to get a medicine or something, or.
And so you provided a service.
Yeah, so provided that, but wanted to make sure that the gospel was in it. So they'd have a tract, they would get a Bible shoved into their hands. We would provide opportunities for either phone call or Zoom one-to-one.
How did the meals work? Did they get a pack? Did you just?
Yeah, so
was it oven ready?
So the whole plant just came around it. Just all went out doing deliveries. They'd have their own area.
But where did you get the food from? I'm saying these packets.
Some of it we would make our own in the early days.
Right.
We would just package it all up.
So it wasn't like the Nidri one then, that we had a relationship with a number of different organisations, and they gave us the food in packets, but then we were the delivery mechanism.
Yeah, so it morphed into that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was good. That was a good way of getting contacts that we didn't have before. You know, that's why it was a win. But yeah, it was just difficult. It's brutal trying to do ministry in a pandemic.
Did you see any fruit?
Yeah, we saw one lady who's, I believe, is saved, and she's doing a one-to-one with our women's worker, possibly looking to get baptised. So that's a win, you know, my book, even if it's one soul.
Praise the Lord. I mean, even if. It's a big thing.
So yeah, a lot of
So you had a
different
lot of difficulties. So you had all these difficulties, and then you got the added disability of being English. So how did you overcome that disability?
I married a Scottish wife.
You did.
That's what keeps me out of trouble up here. But no, just be myself.
And you come from a middle class background.
Yeah.
Even though you're an orphan. You could get teary at this bit. We could edit that in, a little bit of tears.
Yeah.
So how have you found the culture? Because some guys struggle with the culture.
Yeah. I don't think it's... Yeah, I mean, maybe early on you're shocked about how much banter there is, but like I got rugby mates back down south that I used to play with, and it was just banter all the time, brutal. But it's much more brutal up here with the banter. You know, as you can tell from the start of this flipping podcast thing. You know, I think you do have to adapt to it, and the culture has to learn. You know, if they're believers, they have to learn a bit about you and how you're wired. But it's just being charitable to the culture around you, learning it.
So what's the biggest thing you've learned culturally in Scotland, in Bingham?
That often...
Apart from not speaking, not preaching for 4 hours, what's the second biggest thing you've learned?
I think that not all insults are insults. That it can be affection. That was sometimes a little bit difficult to distinguish early on.
Was everybody in Bingham just insulting you, are they?
Well, pretty much, yeah. But no, and I think you kind of expected that it would be massively different, and like people are people at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, they're broken, they need Jesus,
And did you find people to be more or less open than the culture that you've come from?
Massively more. Like,
yeah.
You know, they'll tell you if they don't want to hear the gospel, they'll just say straight up, no, I'm not into any of that.
Which is, I think there's a lot of bad things about our culture, obviously. Lots of sinful things about our culture. All cultures, right? But I think that's one of the best things about our culture is the openness and the honesty. More spiritually open than you would even imagine, right?
Yeah, because the sort of middle upper class place where I was before, that was really hard. Like, you know, you try going up to a guy who's just got everything, you know, he just does not want to talk to you about Jesus, you know, he thinks he's good by his moral good works and everything, whereas here I think there's a sense of I'm open to chat about it. They're into spiritual stuff, they're like seances, the Ouija boards, they're all, you know, so yeah, I found that a good insight.
What have you been teaching the group, the team that's gonna launch the church with you on Sunday? What have you been teaching them during the pandemic, like, biblically, to prepare them for what's to come?
Yeah, I mean, well, we went through our statement of faith, so, you know, what we believe as members, what we believe as a church, and then we went through sort of our confession of faith, what we would teach.
Any issues get thrown up during that? Any of that?
I think closed membership was something that was...
So explain closed membership for the uninitiated.
So issues came about with people that had priorly been baptised as infants and thinking that they could become members. And I was saying...
So you wouldn't have... We're getting exciting now. You wouldn't have...
I know you get complaint emails about this sort of stuff, so...
You wouldn't have a Presbyterian become a member of your church. You wouldn't allow that.
No.
That's a bit harsh.
I would be their brother. I'd be, you know, but...
So how does that work? They could be brother with you, but they couldn't be a member.
Yeah.
Explain that to people. Because I think that's a bit harsh.
Yeah. Because each local church is run differently, isn't it? In the sense that, you know, globally we're the church family, you know, the universal church, but individually, you know, we as elders or as an elder, we have to lead with the conviction of what we see within Scripture. And I think when you see someone profess faith... Would
you take Presbyterian money if they were going to support you financially?
Yes. You're asking the orphan again. I would take whatever money I get given.
So you're not bothered about taking their money?
No.
or call them brother, but they couldn't be a member of your church. And I'm assuming they couldn't take communion either.
No. I mean, it's just trying to be consistent, and I think they would be the same as well, you know, in consistency-wise.
I find them a lot more tolerant than Reformed Baptists like you.
Such a mug.
So did some people have, I mean, listen, it's a serious question. Quite a few of our planters have had problems of people who've come along, they've got a heart for the scheme, they want to get involved in a team, and then when you sit down and go through the nitty-gritty, right, well, this is what a church is. Well, this is what the gospel is first, which I know you've done. This is what the local church is. This is what our local church believes and confesses.
Yeah.
And these are the requirements to become a member of our local church. A lot of people either get offended or leave.
Yeah, so we have one that left over that.
Yeah.
Now the individual's with you because you're open.
So just what that means is, open means more biblical.
Open to all sorts, aren't you?
Yeah, well, we have, I'm on record of saying this so many times, it just does my nutting. So we have, in our church constitution, you can become a member if you're a Baptist or a Pedo-Baptist. Which, let me be clear, is absolutely wrong. And, yeah, we won't go there. I lost that war. I lost that war a while back. So by dint, even the people that can become members, I've been very clear on, you're only members, not because of me, let me be clear. If it was my position, it would be the same as yours, but because of the constitution of the church. But we'll leave that. So you've taught them that, you've gone through that. So what are you aiming to, are you kicking off with a particular series for your first?
Yeah, well, we're going to do Ephesians, but we've got Romans 5:8 plastered on the back of the hall. Like drawn on the back there.
All right, so you're going to open up with that.
Yeah.
How many Puritans are you going to quote in your sermon?
I don't think I've quoted any, actually.
How long is your sermon going to be?
Probably about 33, 35 minutes.
Your opening illustration will be 35 minutes. You're a true Puritan. How have you found, by the way, and all joking aside, because we do like sermon feed forward and things every week at the church where a guy, whoever's doing the preaching, brings their sermon in. And we get some critical feedback. Have you found that helpful? Not helpful?
It is it is a helpful practice.
It's daunting when you first do it, right? Because you think, are these guys going to absolutely rip me?
No, I think it's helpful, and I think, if anything, at the very least, it should create a sense of humility, because your sermon's a very personal thing until you preach it and you pour your heart into it and everything, and then when you go there with a bunch of lads and you hear that your intro's rubbish, you know, that's a real punch, you know. And I think you very quickly get over yourself when you try and listen and sift through all of that feedback.
Have you adapted? I remember reading the biography of what's his name? Oh, I always forget his name. The brilliant American theologian, long dead. Tell me his name. He went to the Indians. Jonathan Edwards.
Okay.
I forget their names.
What is it, David Brainerd or something?
No, Jonathan Edwards, and his ministry during the revivals when he preached in the church and that, and then when he left, he was removed, wasn't he? And he went to the Indians. Reading the latter years of his life, his entire approach to preaching completely changed when he just lived among a people who had absolutely no concept of anything to do with the Bible. Yeah. So I know you've come out of a church where you were preaching and teaching to a specific context. Has your preaching changed or adapted in any way?
Yeah, I think so. Like in the sense of...
Well, it certainly hasn't got better, but I mean, it must have adapted.
So I think it has, in terms of just being very conscious of the illustrations you use, very conscious of, if you quote someone, then change it to modern English. You know, don't say...
Language is important, right?
Yeah.
And so we're aiming for simple but not simplistic. That's what I always say to guys. We don't want to dumb down the message, do we? So people certainly don't get the dumbed down message. But
no, and use, you know, if it's a biblical word like justification or something at the beginning of Romans 5, you use the word, it's biblical, but explain it. I think that's because in those settings, even in the middle class settings, there's an assumption of these guys know it.
Yeah.
And they don't. Even in those settings, they don't.
No, I know.
So and seminary and Bible college doesn't really prepare you for that.
Have you read? Just finished reading. I'm just in the middle of reading Packer's book, 18 Words. That's what I'm going to do next year, I think, in Niddry, once a month, in our community services. He picks 18 words out of the Bible and explains their meaning and supreme importance to the church. It's worth thinking about. It's called 18 Words.
A sermon or an evening?
Yeah. So I'll pick a word like justification or propitiation or atonement, and we'll go.
That's cool.
So we have once a month in Niddry, so we'll preach through a book. Right now we're going through 1 John, but once a month in our communion services I'll stop. So this year we've been doing a festival in Leviticus. So next year I'll just pick 12 of those 18 words and we'll do a word for the communion message. Yeah. Just like for that very reason. Yeah, it's like we use these words are everywhere. Yeah. And yet sometimes I think even the smart people or mature Christians who've been around a long time, sometimes we think they know what that means, but they don't know what it means. So it's really important. Yeah. So tell me, in terms of, you've got an assistant. Who's on your staff?
So we've got Lewis, who's a gospel worker. Emily, who's
Uncle Buck.
Yeah. Emily, who's a woman's
worker. You've seen
worker.
that film, Uncle Buck?
I'm too young, mate.
You are too young. That's what's. I'm even going to ask you. Look at you. Barely kindergarten starts soon for him.
And then we got 2 interns in the maze. All
right. And what's the plan going forward? I mean, you're going to launch on Sunday, but still restricted. Like you got to sing with a mask on, or are you taking them? I mean, are you going all controversial? Are you going all J Mac on us, John MacArthur?
No, I'm not going J Mac.
Do you think COVID's a myth? Do you think COVID is like a worldwide conspiracy to do the church in?
I don't know. I do think at the beginning it was sensible to have certain precautions, but now I think it's a bit of a joke.
So you don't think you should wear masks at church on Sunday? By church, I don't like that term. You don't think you should wear masks on a Sunday gathering when you get together?
Well, we're not like this, are we? We're not. When you go into a cafe.
So we do at Niddry, we wear masks. So would you say that we are selling out to the culture?
No. We would still do that. We would still have masks and sing. But I just think there's so many.
But if it's your choice, would you forget it? Let's just rip the masks off and hug each other on Sunday.
No. Probably not. I would probably. Yeah, I would want the masks off.
So what do you think of John MacArthur's statements? That constantly, please stop sending them to me, all right? I've seen them 25 million times. I'm a non-masker. I've had coronavirus, just so you all know. But I know the majority of my church don't feel that way, so I wear a mask because the unity of the body is more important than my personal opinion on a matter, particularly like this. Yeah. But it worries me that churches are getting distracted by pro-COVID now and anti-COVID and pro-mask, and I'm like, dear me, what are you dividing over absolute nonsense?
It's like the old.
Do you have those issues in your little group or not?
No, like they are pretty much, most of them are, I would say, would be no maskers singing.
But you're not going to do that?
We are going to sing, yeah, but
without a mask?
No, with a mask. We'll sing with a mask.
It's going to be weird, isn't it?
Probably, but we'll gauge it. I mean, it's the first one we're launching.
Yeah, well, as elders, we've just said that we want to do singing. I can't remember. Can you remember what we even said? I can't remember now.
I think it was with mask.
Was it?
Yeah.
I personally, when I sit down, because I'm away from the congregation, I take my mask off. I'm like, but I know a lot of people get.
Yeah.
Some guys preach with a mask.
Yeah, I don't do that.
We're doing that. Look at this, talking about masks. Important stuff, though. People are asking these questions. And lots of young Christians who've got access to the internet are constantly like, is it a conspiracy by Satan to bring down the church? I'm like, I don't think it is. If it is, he isn't doing a very good job, because we've seen converts. I think pretty much quite a few of our lads on the schemes have seen people converted through ministries. We've been given out thousands of meals and delivered hundreds and hundreds of medical supplies to
Yeah.
people in our communities. In fact, the pandemic is probably been the best evangelistic outreach tour we've had for some time, I would
Absolutely.
say.
Making people start thinking about their souls and
Yeah,
Fully.
without people coming online to do Zoom calls, Zoom evangelistic Zoom studies, and who there's a waiting list for. We have 2 services on a Sunday because we can only have
Yeah.
50, but the waiting list for that
mm,
to come in is like it's mad. Right, anything right? So we'll wrap it up. How long have I been going?
25 minutes.
That was enough on board. Obviously, we're grateful to people who support you financially, support the ministry financially. We're very
Yep.
grateful to that. People who supported even prior to your coming, helping us get Bingham off the ground. Bingham has been, just so people know, Bingham has been 18 months for you, but it's been 10 years for me.
Mm.
That's when I first went and saw the building and put a cheeky ask in and said to the people at the time, there was a few old people left. I think the nearest person to live to the close to the building was 14 miles away.
wow.
And they would come in and have a little service and then drive out, and there's nothing happening. And I said, it took me a long time of talks and discussions, and then we finally got it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I think Paul 2 or 3 years at it.
They've been there, 5 years, Emily was saying this morning.
Is it?
Yeah, 5 years.
So it's been a long time.
Yep.
We were just about to launch, and then obviously we had a problem, and then obviously now you needed to get time to get settled. So I'm really looking forward to it. We've had a lot of people who've backed us financially. We're greatly appreciative of that. What are some of the ways that you want to encourage people to pray for you, to pray for the ministry and the community of Bingham?
I just think faithfulness, like, you know your own heart, it's sort of prone to wander, and so I think faithfulness to the task, just see it out. Unity, all this mask stuff is a great excuse for the enemy to cause division and
Yeah.
unity, and it's the worst pandemic in a church. So just pray that young church will remain solid on the gospel.
Because they're mostly young believers.
Yeah,
And by that, I would say under 5 years old.
yeah, they're very immature spiritually.
Yeah.
That plant. So yeah, pray for unity. Pray for mature believers to want to commit to the work and come. Pray for souls to be saved.
Yeah,
Be
and
soul
just be
winners.
encouraged that the world might be in lockdown, but the gospel's not, right?
No, that's right.
The
Yeah,
word goes out, and God will call his people to himself. The sheep hear his voice, and they come.
amen.
So let's just keep being faithful to that. Right, brother? Appreciate you. Appreciate the work. And everybody, please continue to pray for Bingham's. It's a scheme right next to Niddry, a couple of thousand people. Bingham Magdalene,
Yeah, 3,800.
is it? 3,800,
Yeah.
4,000 people. They need the gospel of Jesus. So just pray for this and praise God in the middle of all this madness that another church is opening its doors, and gospel light is coming to another community in Scotland.
Mm.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Cool.
Bless you, man.
That's us. Now, come on, son. That wasn't that bad.
You threw me off at the flipping beginning. You chill me out later on in the.
How did I put you off in the beginning?
Oh, mate, all your flipping banter, mate. That's what it is.
I can't remember what I said now.